Hey everybody, it's Mr. Wright here. I'm just going to do a quick lesson on the Rwandan genocide to kind of follow up with what we've been doing. So the last video we put up would have been about the Holocaust, which took place during World War II when the Nazis systematically eliminated about 6 million Jewish people under the guise of World War II. So today what we're going to talk about is the Rwandan genocide. Now the Rwandan genocide took place in the 1990s, and it took place in Africa. So it's a long time after World War II. But again, we kind of follow the same 10 steps to genocide that we talked about in previous lessons. Oops, that's the wrong slide. All right, sorry, back to the Rwandan genocide. So the Rwandan genocide started on April of 1994, and it started when the president of Rwanda was assassinated. Now, the way he was assassinated is that he was flying on a plane, and his plane was actually shot out of the sky. Now, of the two groups involved in Rwanda, the Hutus are the ones who commit the genocide, and the Tutsis are the people that were killed. This president was flying from a meeting or to a meeting to essentially meet between the Hutus and the Tutsis to kind of discuss some of the issues that were going on in Rwanda. And when he was shot down and killed, the Hutus blamed the Tutsis for the killing of him because they believed that the Tutsis wanted to kill the president in order to put in more of a Tutsi-friendly government. Now, over the period of months that this event takes place over about 100 days. The Hutus systematically eliminated about 800,000 people over those 100 days. So not quite a million people, but in terms of deaths per day, it's one of the bloodiest genocides in human history. So up here, you can see a picture of the crosses for the burial site. Down here in the lower part, you can see a picture of kind of all the skulls. Oops, I have to stop doing that. So Rwanda is a small African country located right between Congo, Tanzania, right here, that little orange dot on the screen. And its population before the genocide was about 7 million people. Now, there's three major ethnic groups that resided in Rwanda at the time period, the first being the Hutu, who are the dominant of the population. They make about 85% of them. And if you remember back to the lesson just on genocide in general a few lessons ago, the Hutus were the shorter people who looked less European, and because they looked less European, the Belgians decided that they were inferior, right? And the Belgians picked the Tutsi, who make up about 14% of the population. They chose them as like the racially superior group in Rwanda and kind of favored them while Rwanda was under Belgian rule. And then there were the Twa, who were a really, really short group of people in Africa, and they made up about 1%. So when we talk about genocide, part of what you need in order for a genocide to occur is you essentially need to have a majority group that is attacking a minority group. So if you look here, the Hutu at 85%, that is a super majority. And then you have the Tutsi who make about 14%. So this 14% is going to be really hard for the Tutsi to actually do anything to really fight back. And I'm not sure what would happen with the Twa and the genocide. It's not really talked about in any of the courses I've taken, but that might be something that might be interesting to you to look up. So like we talked about, the president of Rwanda, whose name I cannot pronounce, was assassinated when his plane was shot down. Now, as soon as he's shot down, the violence begins because, again, the Hutus believe that the Tutsis shot down the plane, or at least that's what they're telling the public. Most common knowledge now believe that the Hutu actually shot down the plane themselves in order to justify the beginning of the Rwandan genocide. Now, while this violence is starting between the two sides, the Hutu extremists, so the Hutu government officials and military leaders, begin to plan to eliminate, kill, destroy the entire Tutsi civilian population. So while all the chaos is going on, these leaders come together to decide to commit the genocide. So the Hutu extremists were known as a group called the Akazu, and Paul Kagame was the leader of the Akazu. Now, many of the Akazu people held top-level positions within the national government of Rwanda. So that's a picture of him right here. So he's one of the main guys that actually organize and run or kind of run the genocide. So as you can see here, he's wanted as a war criminal. Now, when the Rwandan genocide is going on, the majority of the killings in Rwanda are very, very public because there are peacekeepers that have come to Rwanda to essentially stop the violence. Now, the problem is that countries like the United States, they don't vote at the UN, and we're going to get into what the UN is in the next unit here. they don't vote in the UN to actually label Rwanda as a genocide when it's occurring. And because of that, the peacekeepers in Rwanda can't actually do anything to stop the fighting. All they're trying to do is keep the two sides separate. But once the Hutus get to the Tutsis, the peacekeepers are ordered not to shoot down. So this is American President Bill Clinton here now. The United States isn't the only country that refuses to intervene in Rwanda. Most European countries did not. Now, one guy, the leader of the UN peacekeeping mission, Romeo Dallaire, is a Canadian. And he basically has to sit there and watch all of his peacekeepers essentially stand by and do nothing as the genocide goes on. And as the genocide gets further and further on in its kind of timeline, less and less peacekeepers are being sent there, more people are being sent home, and the peacekeepers are having less and less power to actually stop anything from happening. Now, the United States' justification for this is that the United States had been involved in a peacekeeping mission in Somalia previous to the Rwandan genocide. If you've seen the movie Black Hawk Down, it's about that mission. And it was a disaster for the United States. So they weren't really too willing to get involved in another genocide or to kind of commit military forces to Rwanda. Now, the RPF is formed, and essentially it was created by the Rwandan Patriotic Front, or that's what it stands for. And they essentially are created by Tutsi refugees who have fled to Uganda. Now, the RPF become a militant group, and what they start to do is they start to actually fight back against the Hutus. So after all the genocides began and the mass killings are happening and Tutsis are being executed or fleeing the country, they meet in Uganda and they form a military group that they're going to go back into Rwanda and fight the Tutsi, or sorry, to fight the Hutu and kind of ensure their safety and take back their homes, right? They're trying to go home and get some control back over it. Now, the RPF is a better military force. They're better armed than the Hutu militia groups, who mostly have machetes and other knives, a few guns. But the RPF does have some backing from other Tutsi groups in Rwanda. And they begin to take control of the country of Rwanda by cutting off supply routes and essentially infiltrating the country and taking over basically the chaos. So the Hutus have no real government organization in place during the genocide. And once the supply routes are cut off, the whole country just kind of falls into madness. And with that, the RPF, who has a bit more organization, has some government support from Uganda, get back into Rwanda, and they essentially end the genocide by invading. So the French actually supported the genocide. And what they did is they essentially were training the Rwandan militia groups. So if you see right here, these are the Interahamwe. This is the Hutu militia groups. They were actually trained by the French. Now, I don't know exactly what the French motives were, whether they believed that the Hutu would be more favorable as a trading partner or as a colony, or what exactly the goal was. But they were also accused of the murder and hiding the Tutsi people. So the Rwandan militia did most of the killing. There were about 30,000 people in the militia. And some of the weapons they used were AK-47 assault rifles. They had access to grenades, but the majority of it were done through machetes. Now, they chose machetes because they're cheaper than guns, and you don't have to reload a machete. So a machete lasts longer. It's less expensive to maintain. It's less expensive to actually purchase. So that was kind of the weapon of choice by the Tutsi government and the Tutsi militia groups. Now, the whole massacre was organized by the government of Rwanda, who at this point would have been the Hutus. Now, most of the casualties in the genocide, which kind of falls into the war after with the Rwandan Patriotic Front invading, so about 800,000 Tutsi are killed. Now, the violence also forced about 300,000 of them to flee the country to Uganda and Burundi. So if you look at Rwanda right here, you've got Uganda right here, and then Burundi right to the south of Rwanda. So that might be kind of hard to see on the map, but if you follow along in your slides, it'll be there. Oops, and I did that again. So the RPF ends the Rwandan genocide by taking control of the capital city of Kigali. The RPF win the war, and they come in and they take control of the government. Now, as soon as they become the government, the genocide is over, and the RPF becomes the dominant political party in Rwanda. So even though the Tutsis are still a minority group in Rwanda, through their military and through their kind of success in the Rwandan war, which follows the genocide, they come in and they establish political dominance, which ends the genocide for good. Now, I did not make this slideshow. This is one I found off SlideShare. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows that. This isn't my work, so I don't want to take credit for it. But these are some of the sources of the author that made this PDF slideshow use. So you can go down there and check if you want any other kind of further information. But other than that, I think that's going to be it for our lesson today. If you have any questions, come to the Google Meet, and I will talk to you guys later.